Good morning, Rabotai. Breakfast and the class today is dedicated by Murad and Esther Shehebar in celebration of the birth of their baby boy. Hazaku Baruch. We should be zochet to celebrate many happy occasions here in the synagogue and in the wider community. It is also dedicated in loving memory of Mo Mala, Alav Shalom Lilu Nishmat Moshe Ben Jamile, sponsored by his son Jack Mala. As well, dedicated for the Refuah Shalom of Yosef Ben Rachel, sponsored by Jason Urizadeh. And sponsored by Jack Zabidi, dedicated in honor of David and Vicky, Dr. David and Vicky Orfali. Thank you, Jack Zabidi. Rabotai, the tefillah on Shabbat tells us a very interesting expression. It says in the prayers on Shabbat, V'chatuv bahem shmirat Shabbat. What does it mean? V'chatuv bahem. It talks about the two luchot that you brought down, and it says in them the laws of remembering them. Excuse me, Shmirat Shabbat. What in the world does that mean? V'chatuv bahem. In one of the luchot, it mentions Shabbat, so it should say v'chatuv ba. The Khatam Sofer answers a very interesting answer. He says that there's a very famous idea that the five commandments on the right side, if you will, on the side of the mitzvot ben adam lechavero, or ben adam lemakom, between man and God, are parallels to the five on the other side. So each one represents a parallel idea in the world of the relationship between you and God, to the world, the relationship between you and your fellow man. Says the Khatam Sofer, therefore, the opposite or the parallel of Zachor et Yom HaShabbat Lekadesho is Lo ta'aneh b'reacha et shaker. You should not bear false witness against your friend. Because, as we know, that a person who doesn't keep Shabbat properly, it's as if they're bearing false witness as to who it was that created the world. On Friday night, those of us who come to shul on Friday night, we all know that you, at the end of, after you say the tefillah, the prayer, the silent prayer of the Amidah, so we stand up and we say, Vaychul hashamayim ve'aretz, together as a community. We say it out loud. That Vaychulu, we say it specifically standing. Why do we say it standing? And not only do we say it standing, we also don't say it alone. So if, as an example, you finish your tefillah late, and everyone already said Vaychulu, you don't say Vaychulu. Why? Because standing and in two is the way a person gives testimony in a bed din. So if you're a witness in a bed din and you're reporting on something, you're giving testimony to the court, you're saying that you saw this and this person steal, you saw this and this person, in another place to where he said he was on that day. The laws of testimony require two people and standing. So therefore we say Vaychulu in that format. If that's the case, so when a person is celebrating Shabbat, they're bearing witness and testimony to the fact that God created the world. The lack, therefore, of this is almost as if you're falsely testifying against God. It took me a long time to wrap my head around what the Khatam Sofer is actually saying. That means that what we're trying to say is that on each side of the luchot is written Shmirat Shabbat. One in the mitzvah that says Zachor et Yom HaShabbat Lekadesho, and the other where it says Lo ta'aneh b'reacha et shaker. I thought to myself, how in the world could that be relevant to Shmirat Shabbat? You want to tell me that they share similar concepts, fine. But how in the world are you calling Hakadosh Baruch Hu Re'acha? Don't say about your friend, don't bear about your friend false witness. Is God your friend? That you could say that that commandment is also saying Chatuv v'chen katuv bahem Shmirat Shabbat, as if that's also a commandment to keep Shabbat. Rabotai, the answer is something that I think is very powerful. Our rabbis tell us that when a person keeps Shabbat, they act in some ways as a partner with God in creation. Fascinating concept. They act as if they are, together with God, a partner in creation. Perhaps that's why it says Re'acha, and according to the Khatam Sofer, that also communicates the idea of Shmirat Shabbat. In what way am I also helping God create by celebrating Shabbat? Rabotai, there's something that I think is very powerful about these words. And let's look at the words that we say in the Aseret HaDibrot. Zachor et Yom HaShabbat, remember the day of Shabbat, lekadesho. That's a strange expression. How come we don't say Zachor et Avicha ve'et Imecha lechabedo? Right? Strange, right? Zachor et Chaverecha, remember your friend, ve'lo tachmod, and don't be jealous of him. What is this concept of remembering Shabbat lekadesho? It should say Kadesh et Yom HaShabbat. It's almost as if the pasuk is telling you that I couldn't just tell you to be Mekadesh Shabbat. First I have to tell you to remember it. I mean, that's always the case, isn't it? Rabotai, I think herein lies, I think maybe one of the secrets of truly understanding what it means to keep Shabbat. For most people, the concept of keeping Shabbat, people tell me, Rabbi, you don't know, my family, we keep Shabbat. We put on the TV with my elbow, and I use the elevator with my nose, and I do the thing, but I keep Shabbat. What do you mean, in what way are you keeping Shabbat? So he'll tell me I don't drive in a car. That's also some level. Every, thing a person does is something. But for him, that's called keeping Shabbat. Rabotai, I think most of us are obsessed. When we talk about Shabbat, and we talk about keeping Shabbat, we talk about the specific things that we're not going to do in order to celebrate, in order to keep, the laws of Shabbat. But actually, if you look in the Aseret HaDibrot, the mitzvah is categorized as one of memory. It's almost as if the Kiddusha of Shabbat doesn't live in your hands, it lives in your mind. It lives in your brain. What does it mean to remember Shabbat, Zachor? The Gemara tells us that word Zachor et Yom HaShabbat, it was said when we refer to the Dibrot, Aseret HaDibrot, God said Zachor et Yom HaShabbat lekadesho. But we know from when we say Kabbalat Shabbat, when we say Lecha Dodi, we say Zachor v'Shamor b'dibur echad ishme'anu ela meyuchad. God let us hear the words Zachor v'Shamor. We heard both of them b'dibur echad, something that a human being can't do. If two people said in harmony, they said two words at the same time, one of them said Zachor, one of them said Shamor, that sound was what the Jewish people heard. They heard both words emanating from God at the same time. Again, only God could do that, but those two words were mixed together, and that's illustrated to us. Where did the Rav Shlomo Alkabetz, who wrote the Lecha Dodi, where did he see this concept? Where did he see it? The Gemara mentions it, but where did he see it in the Torah? Because if you look in when the Torah mentions it again, when it repeats the story of the telling of the Aseret HaDibrot in Devarim, so it doesn't say Zachor et Yom HaShabbat lekadesho. It says Shamor. So one time it says Zachor, one time it says Shamor. Why? To illustrate to you that God said both of them. But Rabotai, this always bothered me. God never does a miracle, never, if He doesn't need to. So what is this, a party trick? Zachor v'Shamor at the same time. Hey! Like what would have happened if He would have said it afterwards? Zachor v'Shamor et Yom HaShabbat lekadesho. What would have changed if He would have said them independently, sequentially, instead of simultaneously, at the same time? How would that have made anything different? I think, Rabotai, that's exactly the point. Harambam, when he talks about Shabbat, he tries to communicate to us a very powerful idea. When he's talking about the idea of mekach u'memkar, of doing business on Shabbat. Let's say I could do a business deal on Shabbat that involves no melacha. I tell the guy standing next to me in shul, you know my house? Yeah. You want to buy it? The guy says yes. Mutar, you'd think. What have I done wrong? I didn't write. I didn't dye anything. I didn't stamp anything, on the paper. What did I do? We just had a conversation. That's called mekach umemkar. Okay? We're making a business deal between us. We're doing business. That's not one of the 39 melachot, but the Chachamim made it asur. Why? Rambam writes, because if the whole point of giving you the 39 melachot was to stop you from dealing with the business world, to stop you from dealing with your farm, and with your writing, and with your bookkeeping, and with all these things, in order that you should keep Shabbat, if we allowed you to do business, you know what would happen? The Jews would do all the melacha-related work during the week, then Shabbat would come, and they would do all the business parts they would do on Shabbat. Says Rambam, then the whole point of the 39 melachot will be gone, because you'll wind up spending your whole day doing business in Mekach u'Memkar. And therefore they made it asur in order to preserve the Shabbat. What Rambam is saying, what Ramban actually tells us as well, that the main part of Shabbat is not Shamor, it's Zachor. It's not the not doing, it's the doing. But we had to give you not doing in order that you should be able to do. So Rabotai, if you're busy doing all these things, you won't be able to pay attention. What we know time and time again in the Torah is that the Torah asks you, Rachmana liba bae. The Torah wants your heart. It wants you invested. God said, I created the world in 6 days, and on the 7th day I rested, and I want that day to remind you that I am the creator. If I give you these mitzvot and tell you to stop doing all these other things, then you'll have the chance to be able to reconnect. Rabotai, why when we go on vacation does it help our relationships? At least for most people. Why when you go on vacation? You can't chat with your wife in New York City. Right? You can't have a conversation here. You can't go out. You have to go out for dinner in Miami. You can't go out for dinner in New York. What's the difference? Now, yes, that's the case. You can't go out for dinner in New York, and you can't go out for dinner in Miami. But in a normal case, what is the point of this? Why? The answer is the fact that you're not at work, the fact that you're not busy with your everyday, creates space for you to be able to concentrate, to think about, and to sanctify something. The Gemara says, what does Zachor mean? Shamor means guard it, don't do work. What does Zachor mean? Zachor means Zochreu alayayin. So that word means Kiddush. And I always thought this is so amazing. So Shamor means a million things. 39 melachot to be sure. But how many melachot that are not Av, that are Tolda, that we learn from Av Melacha? How many halachot midrabanan? How many, you look, there's books and books and books and books and books just on the minutia of all the things you're not allowed to do on Shabbat. So from the word Shamor, we have that includes all, million. What's Zachor, which God said at the same time? That's Kiddush, one thing. Fascinating. That one word could encompass so much. The other word encompasses one thing. And the answer is, Rabotai, that is true. But if you take a 5-pound bag of sugar and you put it on one side of a scale, and all of the million grains of sand that are in that bag weigh up to 5 pounds, and then you take a little gold nugget this big, or a lead, you put it on the other side, right? It's one thing, but the weight of that thing can actually balance out the scale. Kiddush is everything, Rabotai. The fact that you're raising your glass in a toast to Shabbat, saying before you begin your meal, cheers to this day. This special day that was set aside for the Jewish people by God to remind us of the fact that Borei Olam created the world and therefore we owe him everything. That idea is all hidden in the concept of Zachor et Yom HaShabbat. So God had to tell us the same word. I know I'm going to give you a lot of things not to do in order that you should be able to focus on this. But don't get lost in all the knots and forget that the point of all of that was so that it would be counterbalanced with the zachor, with the kiddush, with the sanctification of the day. You know, there was a businessman in Israel. His name is Lev Levayev. When he came to Israel, he bought, I think, a mall, the Canyon of Ramat Gan, for $750 million. At the time, he was someone who was, Baal Teshuvah. He decided he was going to keep Shabbat. So he tells the city that he's closing the mall. He's closing the mall on Shabbat. You know, he's a religious man. He doesn't work on Shabbat. He just bought the mall. He's closing the mall. The mayor of the town at the time told Lev Levayev, he says, I'm really sorry. He says, but since this area is not Yerushalayim, it's not Bnei Brak, there's not, within 500 meters, there's no religious Jewish people living, you can't close the mall on Shabbat. Even if you bought it, you can't close it. Because by closing the mall in an area which isn't religious, that's religious coercion. Levayev told the guy, he said, listen, it's my mall, I can do what I want. You know, you want to tell, I'll see you in court. The case goes all the way to the Bagatz, which not to be confused with the Badatz. Yeah? And the case goes to court, and Levayev doesn't turn up to the court case with an army of lawyers. He turns up alone. The judge says to him, what do you have to say for yourself? And Levayev says to the court, he says, I want to ask you to imagine something, Your Honor. I want to ask you to imagine that the President of the United States flew to the land of Israel. They closed all the streets. They shut down the whole areas. Everyone's outside. There's parades. They're doing a whole big deal. Netanyahu is coming to shake his hand. Etc., etc. Big deal. Anyway, he makes a detour off of one of the roads that he's on, and he knocks at your house, on your door. You open the door, who's there? The President of the United States. And he tells you, listen, I've been driving through, I didn't know where to, which way, where I was, but I don't know, something spoke to me about your house. I brought something special from the United States of America, one of the oldest treasures of our country. It's been sitting in the vaults of America for all this time. And on behalf of the United States of America, I would like to give you this gift, and you could receive it as a representative of the Israeli people. Could you imagine? He says, gave you the gift. Could you imagine? You take the gift, you look the president in the eye, and you say, listen, take your gift, keep it. I don't need your gift. I don't want any presents. I don't need anything from America. I have a cousin who's coming. He's bringing me the Nescafe. He's bringing me diapers and tuna fish. Everyone from Israel, everyone from America always thinks that they have to bring all this stuff back to Israel. I remember when I got married, so I packed a whole suitcase full of meat and full of everything, right, as if they don't have anything in this, right? Anyway, my mother's packing, you need this, you need this, you need this. Anyway, finally, there's one thing, she goes, that's it. She goes, here, I'm drawing the line. You're not bringing these back with you. I said, why not? I love this, it was the soup nuts that you put in the soup, right? She says, because they're made by Osem, Shlomo. You don't need to bring Osem soup nuts from America to Israel. I said, fair enough. I always thought that, why they called the brand in Israel Osem? Because that's exactly how an Israeli guy would say awesome. He goes, ze lo tov, ze awesome. Anyway, no one told him how to spell it. Okay, fine. The Rabotai. So Levayev turns up on that day. He turns up on the day and he says, never mind the President of the United States. Never mind America's greatest treasure. Borei Olam came to the Jewish people and he said, of all the people on earth, I'm giving you this one present that I have in my storehouse. It's the source of all of our blessing. In it, you'll find whatever you need. Kihi mekora beracha. He says, I came here from Russia where you don't have freedom of religion. I bought this, it's mine. I want to keep it closed. This is God's present to me, to the Jewish people. Why should I not be able to honor the fact that God, at least according to the way I believe, that God gave me this gift? They want to shop somewhere else, let them shop somewhere else. There's other places to shop. But this is mine, and this is the gift of God, and I want to respect it. Rabotai, they did not force him to close the mall. But the amazing thing about the story is that when they, at the end of the year, they produced the balance sheets. It was the mall in Globus, in the newspapers, it was the mall of Lev Levayov that was closed 1/7 more than all the other malls in Israel that were open, that posted the greatest amount of revenue and profit. Kihi mikor haberacha. But Rabotai, in order to be able to stand up to that pressure, because a lot of people, they have these situations where they're faced with something and they say, you know what, I'll sell I'll sell part of the 1/7 of the profit to the Qataris, I'll sell this, I'll make a heter iska. There's two ways to deal with Shabbat. One way to deal with Shabbat is shamor, keeping Shabbat. It's true, I did sell the 7th day to someone who's not Jewish. My non-Jewish partner, he makes all the profit from that day. It's legal, it's good. But that might be shamor, Rabotai, but is that zachor? Is that remembering the matana? Could you imagine? God comes past your store on Shabbat, he sees it's open. What happened? Oh, whatever. I figured a workaround, God. I figured out that if I sell it to this guy, you understand? It's important. I'm not denigrating, because there is a halachic basis and a validity to many of these things that people are using in order to be able to. But never mind your business. This is true about all of Shabbat. Are we looking for ways to get around this thing? Or are we recognizing it for the present that it is? Are we sleeping through the whole of Shabbat? Or are we celebrating Shabbat? I remember someone came to my house for a Friday night dinner, and we have dinner. We have dinner. It's, you start at whatever time you start. We have l'chaims, we're drinking, we're divrei Torah. It's a beautiful vibe. We were there for hours. The guy said, Rabbi, I'm never at the Shabbat table for more than 20 minutes. He says, I've never been sat here at the table, talked with my family. I said, what are you doing? What is it? How is a Shabbat meal different than the meals of the week then? You're not spending time talking, sharing what happened that week, sharing something that you're thankful for, sharing a beracha in your life, sharing something. How do you make that Shabbat meal different? The rabbis tell us that everything about Shabbat is supposed to be different. The taste of the food is supposed to be different. How do you achieve that? By creating a different setting. If you flew on a private jet from Sammy Sutton with Jet Set Airlines, you went to Paris, you went to a Parisian cafe, you sat and had a beautiful, delicious baguette with French cheese and French wine, and then you got back on a plane and you flew back. You feel like $1 million. You remember that meal. What a crazy experience it was. You flew 5 hours, you had this magnificent meal on top of the Eiffel Tower, with the right baguette and the right cheese and the fromage and I don't even know, right? It was exactly the right level of moldy, right? The cheese, the brie, whatever it was. And you come back, you feel so cultured, if you went and bought the same baguette in Whole Foods, and the same brie in Whole Foods, and the same wine in Whole Foods, and you came and you ate it, you made a little table, and you did it in the subway station on the corner of 63rd and Lexington, it wouldn't taste the same. Because it is the experience that elevates the food. Rabotai, we have to push all of our don'ts into the do's of Shabbat to be able to sanctify it, to elevate it, to raise it above all the other days. Remembering Shabbat means that on Sunday, you're looking for something for Shabbat, and on Monday, you're looking for something for Shabbat. The Gemara tells us about Bet Shammai and Bet Hillel that all throughout the week they were trumping the food that they had from the day before. They bought a cowboy steak, and the next day they found, a Kobe steak, and the next day they found a Wagyu Kobe steak, and the next day they found a Wagyu Kobe Delmonico, Bet Chananya, Bet Aspire, Bet Parata, Bet Odalaya, Bet Aseret Bnei Haman steak. They found and every day they would swap out, right? It's amazing to think that we say Hayom Yom Rishon, right? Today is the first day of Shabbat. We say in the Mizmor of the day. Each day is held in abeyance as the first day of Shabbat, the second day of Shabbat, the third day of Shabbat. They all exist to serve like the candles of the menorah, all facing the central pillar, which is this beautiful day of Shabbat. So Rabotai, if we want Shabbat to be the Mekor HaBeracha, the source of all Beracha, if that's what you want, and think about this for a minute. Is there someone in this world that doesn't need Beracha in one way or another? Is there anyone that you know that, you need Beracha? No, thank you, I ate. I'm full, Rabbi, I'm up to here, I can't have any. I can't handle any more Beracha, Rabbi. Please, Dachila, give it to the next guy. If I have any more Beracha, I'm going to vomit. Nobody ever says that. Right? So you have here the keys to the vault of Beracha if you treat Shabbat the way it's supposed to be treated. But again, not like God says, Zachor v'shamor b'dibur echad. It has to be that those are bound up together. That it's not just all the things that you're not doing, but that you're using those to set the stage. To make the feeling, to create a vibe at the Shabbat table, the joy, the happiness, the simcha, the kedusha, the singing songs of Shabbat. Those songs, Rabotai, are holy. The pizmonim are holy. The nigunim are holy. We should be feeling like the Leviim that sang outside of the Bet HaMikdash. That's how we should feel when we sing Shabbat songs at the Shabbat table. That's what you're doing, right? Now, unfortunately, it's a little bit of a lost art, the art of Pizmonim. We talk about it all the time, right? People don't remember all the different, but it doesn't matter if they're Sephardic songs, if they're Ashkenaz songs. Please don't fire me. It doesn't matter if they're Hasidic songs. It doesn't matter what you're singing. The point is that you're singing. Think of these words: Mizmor Shir Liyom HaShabbat. Let us sing a song to the day of Shabbat. What is that? What is the song of Shabbat? Tov leodot la'Adonai uzamer shemcha elyon. The song of Shabbat is the song of thanks that each person helps their children, their wife, their husband, their guests. The song of thanks that we help everyone sing. What are we thankful for? What do we have? What can we celebrate? Instead of focusing on all that we don't have. Rabotai, this world in a pandemic needs Shabbat more than ever before. And someone said to me, Rabbi, my Shabbats, I'm not feeling them anymore. I said, why? He says, because in the pandemic, in quarantine, every day was Shabbat. Used to be the only day I was home was Shabbat. Now he says every day is Shabbat. I'm home every day. Right? He says, I don't understand how. I said, are you joking? I said, it's the opposite. If ever there was a time where we needed to understand the value of having something you're thankful for when you don't have, everyone is focusing on what we don't have right now. The freedom of movement, the vacations, the indoor dining, the theater or the football games. We're all focusing on what we don't have, or the health that we don't have. The nature of Shabbat is to flip the script for a person and to help them recognize what they do have. But if you don't remember to do that, if you don't go into Shabbat thinking, how do I change the way that we think, that we relate to this day, to our world, to our lives, to our families? Your wife is not perfect, but let me tell you a secret, neither are you. Your children are not perfect, but neither are anybody else's kids. There's never been someone who arranged an app called Child Swap, right? Where you find the neighbor whose kids you like, and you trade him. Like, I have 5 girls, I need a couple more boys. This one's anyway a little bit annoying, so why don't you have these two? I'll trade you these two and a first round draft pick for next year. Right? If you give me your Matthew Stafford. Right? It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. Right? To be able to focus and to bring out, with all the challenges, with all the negatives that we're seeing, to be able to see that which is beautiful about your spouse, about your children. That's the power of Shabbat. That's the mizmor, the song of Shabbat. Tov lehodot la'Adonai, l'zamer shemcha Adon. Baruch Adonai le'olam. Amen ve'amen.